Hello and welcome to a new episode of Sustainable Conversations. My name is Olivia Hart and I'm the Senior Researcher for the Legal 500 Global Green Guide. I'm kindly joined here today by Rajesh Sreenivasan, and who heads the TMT practice at Rajah Tann, and he's going to be discussing with me the interplay between technology, data, and ESG in the ASEAN region. So just to give a little introduction on Rajesh, he's been advising clients on legal, regulatory and policy matters relating to technology, cybersecurity, data protection, telecommunications, electronic commerce, cloud computing, digital forensics and digital media for over 20 years. He has also co-founded the Rajah Tann Technologies, the corporate arm of Rajah Tann Asia that provides market-leading tech-enabled legal solutions to clients, and Rajah Tann Security as well, which integrates legal and cybersecurity expertise all under one roof. He has constantly been at the forefront of telecoms, media and technology, legal and regulatory matters in the region, and has been universally recognized by all ranking agencies as the preeminent practitioner in TMT law. So his recent work covers cutting-edge legal, regulatory and policy work in TMT in areas such as artificial intelligence, virtual currency and other blockchain implementations, data analytics, Internet of Things, telecoms and media over-the-top frameworks, deliberate online falsehoods and online privacy and data protection models at a policy and legislative level. Rajesh is also a past member of the Asia Advisory Board on the International Association of Privacy Professionals, and was also the chairman of the National Accreditation Committee for Data and Digital Economy Lawyers in Singapore by the Singapore Academy of Law. The committee sets the accreditation standards for all TMT lawyers in Singapore from 2022. So really, really pleased for you to be able to join me today to discuss such an interesting topic. So maybe let's just dive straight into it.
Sure.
So to start, could you just share with us how technology and in particular data analytics and artificial intelligence plays a significant role in ESG?
Yeah, certainly, Olivia. So the way we look at it is the law plays a significant role in terms of bringing clarity and in terms of drawing boundaries of what is legal and what is illegal in terms of exercises, new projects, new technologies. So in that context, when you look at the law in the area of data analytics and artificial intelligence, quite clearly when it comes to sustainable practices, there is a need for an empirical measure of success or failure of these sustainable exercises. And to be able to evaluate these projects effectively, there will be a need for data to be collected, right? So when you launch a service, for example, if you are putting in place a scheme for sustainable farming, you need to be able to show, to demonstrate empirically using data analytics that you have in fact met the standards, the green standards, to be able to, for example, achieve an accreditation, to obtain certain fundings, etc. So in that regard, technology and data analytics and artificial intelligence are significantly important in the ESG industry. And what I hope to cover in the subsequent questions is to share with you how different types of laws come into play to help provide that clarity when it comes to this area of data and data analytics, data governance, data security, cybersecurity, data protection. All of those principles need to be taken into account when looking at the role of technology in sustainability in ESG. One more point, if I may, before we move on to the next one. The issue of artificial intelligence is also important because these days there are a lot of systems that will crunch the data automatically using algorithms. Now, this also introduces some legal exposure because the question becomes, who is responsible if the AI system does not act the way it is supposed to? What if the AI system produces errors and things of that nature? So there are significant legal and regulatory issues around this space that ESG industry players need to be aware of.
Thank you. And are there any specific case studies that you would perhaps be able to share with us on the interplay between ESG and technology?
Sure. I think the one I'd be happy to share on it, which is already public knowledge, so I can speak about it, is one that we did with Bayer. who, as you may know, is a very large pharmaceutical company. What many people may not know also is that Bayer is also a very big player in the agriculture sector, helping farmers to get maximum yield from their farms. Now, one of the tools that farmers use in terms of getting maximum yield is pesticides, which, as you know, is something that we are trying very, very hard to reduce the consumption of. And so what Bayer has done in this particular case, as a case study, so let me share that. What they have done is they've created drones that fly over the farmers' spaces, finds crops that have in fact been affected by various insects, for example, and only target the pesticides to those parts of the farm that actually need pesticide support. What that does is it means that you don't need to do carpet blanket bombing like what happens today, and unnecessarily spray pesticide over crops that actually do not need that type of support. So that's one example where the use of technology has helped, because these drones will fly over the farm. They will collect data by having cameras pointing downwards to, as I mentioned before, look at crop yield. You look at crops that have been affected by various kinds of infestations, and then do specific targeted application of pesticides, thereby saving the farmer money, but also very importantly, reducing harm to consumers of farm products by reducing the amount of pesticides that's used. At the same time, the drones have sensors pointing upwards, and that allows it to collect data about weather, wind conditions, temperature, etc., which also will help the farmer significantly in terms of when to start seeding their farm, when to start harvesting their crops, etc. So quite a lot of data, very rich data that has been used, and technology has played a significant role in terms of achieving sustainability goals.
Thank you. And cybersecurity and data governance have often been raised as areas of specific focus in this interplay between ESG and technology. Is this something you agree with?
Oh, absolutely. I think many technology systems today are set up with the highest security standards, but the best cybersecurity people will always tell you that there's no 100% foolproof systems. Systems will fail. There will always be, bad actors who, one way or the other, will find a means to bring IT systems down. And so the ESG industry is in no way immune to this. And as technology starts being rolled out, and as the ESG industry starts relying to some extent on technology tools, on bots, on drones, etc., there is the possibility of cybersecurity attacks on both the systems and, very importantly, on the data that's being collected. And so, yes, cybersecurity issues are particularly important, and data governance, and why I see cybersecurity and data governance going together is because data governance is the school of law and regulation that requires organizations to take a very serious view as to how they collect data using these technologies, what the data is used for, ensuring that they get consent for the data collection, ensuring that they've taken good care, in particular, of personal data assets. So sometimes, for example, they fly over and it takes photographs. It might also take photographs of people as well. And there's a need for sensitivity when collecting such data across multiple places, because personal data may be involved. So having high standards of cybersecurity and data governance is key. Now, if I may also add, if you were to look at the regulations around Southeast Asia, which is what I want to also share with all of you, most jurisdictions in Southeast Asia have already passed data protection laws. And a universal concept under data protection laws is what we call the security principle. And that means that the need to ensure cybersecurity is a regulatorily mandated requirement. It's not just best practice, it is in many jurisdictions required under law. So I just want to leave that message as well with the participants. Thank you.
And so ownership and intellectual property rights over technology and data assets have often been cited as roadblocks to successful implementation of ESG initiatives. Could you perhaps share some examples of how you've helped clients overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, and they fall into two big buckets, the area of intellectual property. One, of course, is the intellectual property over the IT systems themselves. As I mentioned before, algorithms are not always protected under intellectual property laws across all jurisdictions, so you need to be very careful which countries it is that you seek to assert your interests. And then the other area, of course, is the data and the ownership rights over the data. So there's ownership rights over the intellectual property of the IT systems, the software, in some cases, even the hardware design, and in the data. And both of these need to be taken into account very, very seriously insofar as ESG initiatives are concerned. The reason why it's characterized as a roadblock is that this often becomes commercially important points and will affect the costing in terms of provision of IT services, and also, in terms of monetization of that data by either the vendor or the party using the service. And these are questions, therefore, that need to be addressed very early on in the contract negotiation session. Unfortunately, from my experience, what I find is that these issues are not really thought through fully. So, for example, I've seen contracts where we have clients have put in excellent clauses with regard to intellectual property of the IT systems, but very little said of the data, right? Apart from data protection and data security, data ownership is something that cannot be left to chance. It has to be specifically stated, especially in the sustainability space, because as I mentioned at the start, to your first question, the data is necessary for empirical analysis of the success or failure of sustainability projects. So the ESG sector relies very heavily on data, and therefore it's very important for ESG industry players to ensure you have proper, adequate intellectual property protection over the systems as well as the data, and then you're good to go.
And finally, blockchain technology and smart contracts have been touted as technologies that add value to ESG initiatives. Could you share how these technologies can assist ESG projects from a legal standpoint?
Sure. I think we're going to, in a sense, uncharted territory, but also at the same time, somewhat jaded or old technology as well. Let me explain. Obviously, blockchain and smart contract is something that a lot of people are talking about today in the context of virtual currency, in the context of non-fungible tokens, etc. Now, when you take that and you bring it to more serious applications, for example, in the space of ESG, it has got a very, very significant role to play. So, for example, today, tokens are being used for electronic bills of lading, right? Under the model law of electronic transferable records, set up by UNCITRAL, which is a United Nations body, and various countries such as Singapore, United Kingdom have amended their laws to take into account these sections. And what that means is you can use these tokens as an insignia of proof of ownership, and use it in the context of electronically transferable records. So from an ESG perspective, it can be used as a token to represent ownership over specific goods and services as well. So that's important. It can also be used from a provenance perspective. So I know I've been talking too much about agriculture, but sustainability goes well beyond the agricultural sector to for example, good environmental practices. And carbon credits, for example. When it comes to areas of that space, in that space also, again, tokenization from a provenance perspective makes a huge difference. So that's where I see a significant application of blockchain and smart contract technology. So tokenization, absolutely. Some people have started suggesting that, for example, from an ESG perspective, should there be a virtual currency created for that purpose? I am a skeptic when it comes to that. I think that boat has sailed quite a while since, and I think that my earlier examples in terms of using blockchain technology for specific tools, that would be much better in tokenizing provenance, tracing and tracking carbon credits, tracing and tracking various goods and services provided in a sustainable manner, and in some cases also using it to track and trace data sets that prove that sustainable practices have in fact been carried out, and the standards required for adequate performance of sustainable practices have also been achieved.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time and taking your time to talk us through some quite complicated concepts here. I found it really interesting. Thank you.